The f7 square is widely considered the weakest point on the board for black. I mean, it is the only square that is not defended by any of the minor or major pieces, and it is a pivotal square that protects the black king. I mean, the only piece that protects the f7 square or the f7 pawn is the king. Now, this video being the first of the two-part video series, I'm only going to cover 5 openings where you can take advantage of the f7 square. And then in part 2, I'm going to cover the remaining 5 openings. And so let's get started and see how you can take advantage of the weak f7 square in almost every opening that black responds with. So the first one on our list is against the Alkan Defense. The Alkan Defense is where white begins with pawn to e4, and then black, instead of playing pawn to c5 or pawn to e5, black plays knight to f6. So the idea in the Alkan is that black is expecting that you're going to push the pawn to e5 so that he can put his knight on d5, and then you go d4 at some later point, and then he'll play d6, and then you capture on d6, then you play c4. For example, here black is expecting you to go pawn to e5, after which he's going to respond with knight d5, and then if you play c4, he's going to play knight b6, and then d4, d6, and then here he's expecting you to play f4, which is the move that was played in the game between Fabiano Caruana versus Magnus Carlsen in the year 2020 in the Carlsen Invitation Chess. But in this position, apart from f4, black is also expecting you to take right away on d6, and this is what all black is expecting to see in the Alkan Defense. So in this case, after black plays knight to f6, instead of pushing the pawn to e5, I recommend that you go bishop c4, which will come as a surprise to many of your opponents, because now they are going to question why you left this pawn hanging on e4, and so you are going to see most of your opponents taking on e4, after which you are going to play bishop takes on f7 check. And the only move that black can play here is to capture with the king, after which you should give him a check on h5 with your queen. And from here you are going to see your opponents blocking the check with pawn to g6, after which you should play queen d5 check, winning back the knight. And also in this position, what you have done is that you have made black lose his right to castle. For example, if black plays e6, you should take on e4 with your queen, and then if bishop g7 by black, h4 is the way to go, because you are now intending to go h5 and destroy the whole entire king side. So black is going to play knight c6, after which you should play knight to f3. See how you are developing all the moves naturally. After d5, queen f4 check, queen f6, queen takes on c7 check. So you can now see that not only are you a pawn up, but you are also intending to put your knight on g5 and also go d4, opening the way for the bishop, and this is going to be great for white, guys. You know, I've played this 1,000 times, and I can assure you to say it is a great opening and you will never go wrong with it. Okay, number 2, against the Sicilian Defense. How can we even take advantage of the weak f7 square against the Sicilian Defense? So here white plays e4, then black responds with c5, the Sicilian Defense, then white goes knight f3, then most of the times you are going to see your opponents playing pawn to d6. So pawn to d6 oftentimes leads to the nudge off, but that's not what you are intending to play, because from here you're going to continue with the natural move pawn to d4, after which black is going to take on d4, and then you will take back with your knight to f6, just attacking the pawn on e4. And in this position, after black has played knight to f6, attacking your e4 pawn, instead of going knight to c3, defending that pawn, I recommend that you go bishop c4. Bishop c4. So what's the idea behind bishop to c4? The idea is not that different from that of the Alkan, because if black takes this free pawn, again we are going to give him a check on f7 square, sacking our bishop, and if king takes on f7, we are going to play queen h5 check, and just like in the Alkan Defense, if pawn to g6, we are going to give him queen d5 check, winning back our knight. For example, in one of my games that I played against a 2300 rated chess player on Lichess, here my opponent made a blunder by playing bishop to e6, forgetting that I can still take that bishop and still win back my knight. Wow, so what if black plays the normal move pawn to e6? Then here the continuation would be queen takes on e4, bishop g7, just fianchetting that bishop, knight c3 by white, rook f8 by black, bishop e3. Black in this position may play pawn to d5, attacking our queen, after which we should play queen to d3. Here black thinks he's making some progress, but by carelessly pushing his pawn forward is just weakening his position. So from here we're going to go knight db5. Then after d4, black thinking he has forked our knight and bishop. Here we sacrifice our bishop and play knight to e4, because the idea is that if black takes on e3, we are going to play knight b d6 check. And most of the times you're going to see your opponents responding with king to g8, trying to hide their king. But here we're going to play queen d5 check, and after king h8 we're going to unleash the move knight to f7 check. And note that if the rook takes our knight, we are going to take the free queen. So it looks like the only possible move is king to g8, after which we should give him a check on h6 with our knight, double attack. So the only legal move for black in this position is king h8, after which we are going to sacrifice our queen on g8 with check. And after black takes with his rook, we are going to mate him on f7 with our knight, smoothed mate. And that's just one way you can win against the Sicilian defense, by taking advantage of the weak f7 square. So guys, if at all you're enjoying this video so far, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the like button, because that is going to encourage me to make more wonderful videos just like this one. And therefore, I'm giving you 4 seconds to subscribe to my channel, and please don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section down below. Number 3, against the two knights defense. So this is where white begins with a move e4, e5 by black, knight to f3, knight c6 by black, just defending the pawn on e5, bishop to c4, knight f6. Everything looks normal until now, when we unleash the move pawn to d4. This is called the two knights defense open variation. Actually, in this position, the most common move is for white just to normally develop his knight, or to play the Giuoco Pianissimo, or simply the pawn to d3, or simply developing the pawn to d3. But after pawn to d4, note that we are attacking black's pawn on e5. So black should be very careful here. For example, in this position, if black carelessly takes with his knight on d4, yep, we now take away his rights to castle by unleashing the move bishop takes on f7 check. The idea is that if king takes on f7, we are going to win the pawn on e5 with check, and black has to play something like king to g8, after which we are going to win his knight on d4 by capturing it with our queen. For example, if black plays pawn to d5, we play knight c3, just a developing move. If c5 by black, we are going to play queen d3, queen e7, then f4, defending our knight, and also eyeballing the e4 square. And this is considered to be good for white. So this was against the two knights defense in terms of how you can take advantage of the weak f7 pawn. Now in this position, black does not necessarily have to take with the knight. Instead of taking with the knight, black can also take with the e pawn. So after e takes on d4, we are going to play e5, and from here black has about 5 responses that he can go with. Black in this position can play knight back to g8, or knight h5, or knight g4, or knight to e4, or the best response, which is pawn to d5. What can happen if black plays knight to g4 right away, attacking our pawn on e5? Well, in this position, I recommend that you capture right away on f7 with check. And if king takes on f7 again, you play knight g5 check. If, let's say, black plays king to g8, here you should not even take the knight on g4. Just go queen f3, intending to capture the knight on g4, quite alright, and also threatening to checkmate on d5. For example, if knight foolishly takes on e5 with his g knight, we are going to give him a check with our queen on d5, intending to checkmate on f7. And so if black doesn't take on e5, he can also choose to go bishop b4 first, which is check. From here, I suggest that you play pawn to c3, just blocking the check. And then if knight g takes on e5, you go queen d5 check, king f8, castle shot, queen e7, f4, attacking the knight on e5, knight g4, c takes on b4, taking black's bishop. If h6 by black, I suggest that you go b5, attacking his other knight on c6, and let's say if knight to b4, you play queen f5 check, knight f6 blocking the check, bishop d2 just attacking the knight on b4, and if d6 by black, threatening to capture our queen on f5, here you should play queen g6, and after queen e8, I suggest that you exchange the queens, and if king takes on e8, rook e1 check, king f8, bishop takes on b4, h takes on g5, f takes on g5, and white is already better in this position. Okay, so that was against the two knights defense. Number 4, against the Giuoco Piano, or the Giuoco Piano as you pronounce it. In the Giuoco Piano, there are two hidden gambits that are very deadly, namely the Deuce Gambit and the Max Lange attack. Not really a gambit, but it's an attack, and you will see why it is called so. We should start with pawn to e4, and then black will respond with e5 again. So knight to f3 will be played, knight c6 by black, bishop c4 eyeballing the f7 square yet again. Then from here you are going to see black responding with bishop to c5, just trying to equalize the position and developing a minor piece. In this position, I recommend that you castle short, after which you are going to see most of your opponents developing their knight on f6. And this is what we want, because again, just like in the two knights defense, we are going to play the move pawn to d4, and there are about 4 responses that black can respond with, out of which only one is correct. And I'm going to tell you right now, the best response by black should be bishop takes on d4, and this is one line in which you can force black to surrender his bishop pair early in the game, which is good for white. Because let's say if black takes on d4 with the pawn, we are going to play e5. In this position, d5 is the best response for black, but we are not going to cover it in this lesson, since we are only focusing on the f2, f7 sacrifices in this lesson. So instead, you're going to see most of the times black responding with the moves knight to g4, for example, attacking the e5 pawn yet again. And I hope by this time you already know what our plan is. Yep, bishop takes on f7, sacrifice. The idea is that if king takes on f7, we are still going to go knight g5 check, indirectly attacking the knight on g4. And just like in the two knights defense, if king goes to g8, this time we are not going to put our king on f3 because of d5 by black. So in this case, we are going to take back our piece right away with a move knight takes on g4. Then after d6 by black, we play knight to f3. And here black should be very careful, because we are about to checkmate him. For example, if he carelessly plays queen to f8, trying to exchange queens, here we go queen d5 check, and here as you can see, it's already game over, because the only possible move is for black to sacrifice his bishop and then his queen. Checkmate. In this position, black can also try to go knight to h5, after which we should play knight g5, attacking black's knight on h5, and also intending to go bishop h7 check. This is already worse for black, because let's say if black tries to play d5, we are going to take with ampersand on d6, and if knight f6, for example, this time we are going to sack with our knight, not our bishop. Knight takes on f7, forking black's queen and the rook, and here black is already lost, as you can see. So this was against the Giuoco Piano. Let's continue. Number 5, the fried liver attack. I guess most of you already know this trap. e4 by what? e5, knight f3, just natural moves, knight c6 by black, defending the pawn on e5, bishop c4 by white. Then in this position, after knight f6 by black, you go knight g5, attacking the pawn on f7 once again. So here you're going to see black responding with a move d5, after which you should take the pawn on d5, and let's say if knight takes on d5, here you should sacrifice your knight on f7, once again forking the queen and the rook. The idea behind the fried liver attack is that if black takes with the king, we give him a check with queen to f3 check, attacking the knight on d5. King goes to e6, we develop our knight to c3, and if knight to b4, castle short with ideas of going d4, a3, and punish black's king, which is on the center. Note that our king is safe, and by playing a3 we are going to harass black's knight on b4 and win back our piece by capturing the knight on d5. Not to mention rook e1 is also on the plate. But at master's level, you won't see white taking on f7 right away. Instead, the most recommended move, or the most solid move for white, is to play d4. The idea is that if knight takes on d4, we go c3 attacking the knight. If b5 attacking our bishop, we go bishop d3, just protecting our bishop. Knight to f4 by black, then bishop takes on f4. E takes on f4 by black, bishop e4 attacking the rook on a8, queen takes on g5, bishop takes on a8, queen e5 check, queen f1, knight e6 by black, bishop c6 check, king e7, and white is better. Why? Because we have many open lines, and we are also intending to go knight bd2 and knight f3 attacking the queen.